We are standing on the lot where once stood the Palace Recreation and Bowling Center in Pulaski, Wisconsin. It was built originally by Frank Baker as a billiard hall, and bowling was introduced later. Further to the east is Joseph Karowski's Saloon and Hotel, which later became Blizniak's.
Here's a story about the Palace Recreation that was actually submitted by Tim Prokash and his family to the Pulaski Area Historical Society in the fall of 2020. Our parents, Frank and Virginia Prokash, had 7 kids. There were 4 girls, Judy, Barb, Cathy and Linda, and 3 boys, Mike, Tim, and Bill, ages 13 years to 11 months. Our mother died in 1958. Years later, Dad married Janette Breitenfeldt, who had 2 boys, Jack and Bruce. Together, they had 1 son, Scott. Our dad had the business for 27 years. I spent the first 17 years living upstairs. From my oldest sister to youngest brother, we all had our share of work and memories growing up there. One that was always brought up first was the work, transforming the bowling lanes into a dance floor for weddings, getting up before school and going downstairs to clean the bar, restaurant and alleys before school again, after school leagues, but before night leagues began. Then every Saturday, we had to clean and maintain the pinsetters. But not all was work. We all had our share of fun, from bowling after closing until your arm felt like lead to playing football or baseball behind the Legion Hall. Having friends over, playing hide and seek, and total darkness, meaning someone could walk within inches of you and not be seen, or taking the go-kart from the back alley up to around Assumption BVM Cemetery. Also, there was jumping from the roof to the neighbor's porch. There were snowball fights back and forth across Main Street. There was painting windows and making floats for homecoming. Memorial Day and the 4th of July parades were fun. It was fun seeing Main Street full of cars on both sides of the street and around the corners on Friday nights. But we all agree that we were taught responsibility and accountability, and never give anyone the satisfaction of quitting. Yes, living with the business had its ups and downs, but in no way did we regret it.
Good job. Well, wow, being able to work in a bowling alley, I thought it would be pretty much, fun and being around people and people drinking. It wasn't fun, it was really work.
It was.
Yeah, unfortunately, it wasn't the fun that I anticipated. You really didn't make a lot of money. Back then, Mr. Prokash paid us not by the hour, but by the game, or as he called it, by the line. So if you worked on a night where there was a league and there was 2 teams, because you had 2 alleys that you were responsible for, you got a whole $3 for the whole night.
Oh my gosh.
So you sat in between the 2 alleys, and it had like a little step in between, and then your butt was up there higher, and in back of you there was a couple boxes with pins in them, and in back of that was wallboard, like real cheap plywood wallboard. Wallboard had a whole bunch of dents in it. And the first night I worked, I asked the other guy that was working with Ted, was kind of showing me what to do. I said, Ted, what is all these big dents in the backboard here? He said, well, you'll find out. He said, one thing I'm going to tell you is when you are between and you see a bowler that's going to fire him, because after a while you know which ones really fire him, you put your hands across each other, because a lot of times those pins, and the pens weren't even weights, unfortunately. They were a mismatch of different, not brands necessarily, but older, newer. Some had pieces missing off the side, and you always made sure that the nice side showed to the front, because when you loaded them, you had to make sure that the piece that was busted off the back was in the back. So sure enough, the pens do fly, and I got really close to my ear a couple times, and it does hit the board and really make a dent. So if you had pins that would actually split, well, you had to grab something from the back box. But in the back box was the worst. So you had to find the best of the worst. Mr. Prokash didn't believe in buying a new set of pins. Oh, the other thing I remember, because you got a whole $3 for working the whole night. If you got a tip, some of the pullers were pretty nice guys, and they would fire down a quarter down the lanes. They would actually throw the quarter down the alley, and you're hoping it's going to make it all the way into the pit. And a lot of times that quarter, depending how hard he threw it, would bounce into the other lanes. You didn't get the quarter, the other guy did, but vice versa if somebody was throwing a quarter to them. So there was some nights you made the whole 60 to 75, maybe even $1 on a good night, and that was rare to get an extra $1. Right, and then the highlight of that night, of everything else, was getting the one free soda from Plasky Soda Works from Mr. Prokash. 16 at that time, and I do remember because you pick up pins, you actually get your fingers, you get the indentation there because of the pins. You pick them up. One of the other thing I remember was when somebody told me, he said, you know, you want to make it a little easier for yourself. You can only do this when you see the really good bowlers doing it. You have to kind of make sure that they get a strike. I said, well, how do you do that? He said, well, if it comes in there, you just take your left foot, and if it's the 7 pin on that side, you just, nudge it a little bit, it falls down. And I said, well, why would I want to do that? He said, well, you'll learn after a while, because if they knock down 8 or 9 pins, you got to go down there, put the ball back in the rack, let it go down the chute, and then put the 8 or 9 pins in. But if they get a strike, you only have to pick up the ball once. Ah, that made sense. So, no idea how many guys are really helping scores.